14th of May 1995. Just a small hydrothermal, a little bit of excitement, but nothing compared to what is to come. Continued on like this during this period. Not very much snow up there yet. These are not magmatic eruptions, but this is what is to come. Still at the 14th of May, round about this size was not unusual, but again just steam eruptions, not magmatic at this stage. Here we are on the afternoon of Saturday the 23rd of September 95. It's actually about 10 to 5. Skiing has finished for the day, and we have the usual form of activity that had been going on, perhaps a little bit darker in colour. Ski patrollers are up doing their final sweep. Skiers are still milling around the car park area, arranging their transport back down the mountain, back down to Okuni. And this is a fairly large looking hydrothermal eruption, a little bit darker than usual. And then suddenly it all changes. First signs of magmatic material being erupted. Just a little bit, or so we thought. And up she goes. The shot shows the scale quite clearly. It's a fairly large mountain, so that's a fairly large explosion. In a moment on the left hand side you'll be able to see the lahar starting to move down the mountain. And there it comes now, in the Mungaturuturu Valley, travelling at approximately 100 km, maybe more than that. And further to the left you can just see the fairly large spread as more lake water has been ejected by the force of that explosion. At this stage, of course, there were quite a few people in the car park and the lower areas that were feeling fairly concerned about what was going on. There was, I understand, a neck injury on the upper part of the mountain that was being evacuated, and it apparently was a fairly hurried evacuation. In the centre of the column at the moment it can be seen that it's sort of tending to collapse back into the crater. A lot of boiling of that steam and ash cloud going on. At the time of the eruption there was, we understand, about 10 or 12 million cubic metres of water in the lake itself. And although this seems a fairly large burst of material, certainly had a long way to go before it would empty the lake out. Crater Lake is usually around about 500 metres across. Temperature sort of ranges between 20 and 40 degrees centigrade. But during the period of heating and cooling that had been going on recently, the temperature had been up to over 50 degrees C. Of course, the skiing had finished. Most people were well clear of the mountain on both sides. Whakapapa side people were concerned about because there were two lahars rushing down the upper area there, right down each side of one of the fairly popular tea bars on the upper field. But also it was such a clear, wonderful clear day to view a spectacle that's really a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. People in the street here can be seen, they've just stopped. A lot of people, of course, didn't even realise what was going on. They've been going about their business if they didn't bother looking up. There were no sounds, no explosive sounds from the eruption. Apparently was deadened, of course, by the depth of lake water. So there were many people spoken to afterwards who had no idea anything was going on at all about this stage here. This is about half an hour since the original eruption, and the main column cloud has dissipated and it's taken on this much flatter form. I've actually done a sort of a stop frame over the next 10 minutes, quarter of an hour, and we notice that this the ash cloud is now actually collapsing. Just ahead are some scenes of people skiing in the early part of the season, and here we have back at the mountain 6th of February 95, showing a small hydrothermal eruption. Of course, people wanted to ski, but they couldn't, not enough snow at this point in time. The ski season doesn't start till July. Just the hydrothermals. And yes, skiing's what we're after. Now this is in September, the early part of September. The ski field's open. There's a lot of people up here skiing. And we started to get reasonable frequency of this type of steam eruption. At first it was produced a bit of excitement for those people that had come down from Auckland and Wellington and around the country. But everybody seemed to get used to them, and there would only be passing remarks later on in the day about, did you see that big one in the afternoon? The formation of the steam cloud was often of interest. It took on some unusual shapes sometimes, a little bit like the topical Mururoa A-bomb tests. Lovely ski field. Slightly larger hydrothermal, again produced a little bit of excitement. People were starting to get more and more used to this type of eruption. The scientists were telling us that this was all part of the normal cooling down stage of the crater lake. On the lighter side, it won't blow. Whoops-a-daisy. Let's get out of here. But no, this didn't happen, of course. Fortunately, the skiers weren't on the hill at the time. We repeat the main eruption. Just to the right hand side of that cone area you can see ash signs, because the mountain did in actual fact have some magmatic eruptions during the night several days previously. It then had snow cover which covered over the ash, and some people who actually walked up on the Thursday prior to this daytime eruption noticed when they got to the top that they were leaving black footprints in the snow. So the snow was about 10 centimetres thick, and then there was a half-inch of ash underneath. But they wandered round at the crater rim and took photographs and enjoyed the nice weather, then wandered off back. Naturally, when they saw this happening on the Saturday afternoon, they were wondering about just how wise it was to have been up there a few days previously. This ash and steam column finally rose to a height of approximately 6 kilometres. Since this first one, there have been some other eruptions where the cloud has actually gone higher. This is now Monday the 25th. Bits of information about these volcanoes. The material that's down inside the volcano is actually called magma. Should it come out in the form of a molten flow, then that's when its name will tend to change to lava. So the lava is actually magma with most of the gases released from it. Now, there are different types of eruptions. The ones that we have seen so far, and the one that's about to start now, is just molten magma being ejected forcibly because of the gases that are building up inside the mountain need to escape. The pressure builds up to the point where finally they do escape, and it blasts out the molten magma with it, as it is doing now. In some more explosive eruptions, then immense amounts of magma are erupted, and they can form a very, very high column, be blown up so far they can form a very, very high column, and when that column collapses back down onto the mountain, because it still contains a lot of gas, the flow of material will actually go down the side of the mountain and out over the land at very, very high speeds. There's very little friction associated with that type of flow because of it's supported on these gases. So they can reach incredible speeds. It's understood that the Taupo eruption produced this pyroclastic flow that was going past Turangi at about 600 kilometres per hour. Now, Ruapehu, at this point in time, doesn't appear to have the type of magma, the high silica content magma as they call it, that produces that very explosive eruption. The eruptions that we're seeing here are really quite gentle compared to what Taupo managed to produce. You can see the difference in the colour in the ash clouds there from the two eruptions. The very right hand one appears to be mostly steam, whereas the other one was more of a magmatic eruption, so it's got a lot of ash in it. The ash, of course, is blown up, carried up with the cloud of steam, gases, and then the fine ash particles slowly dissipate out and come down rather like rain. Very annoying occurrence. Apparently, during this eruptive period, and this is now happening Monday following the main eruption on the Saturday, the mountain was putting out about 2,500 tonnes of sulfur dioxide gas per day. Also, an eruption of this size would produce a seismic volcanic earthquake up to about 3 on the Richter scale. So these eruptions that you're seeing now, which are taking place on that Monday, nobody could hear any sound from them in the town, and no vibrations were felt. But they were still producing a reasonable sort of volcanic earthquake, and that was being picked up by the seismic measuring equipment and relayed to Wairaki, the research centre there, and also the Whakapapa Department of Conservation Information Office have a seismic reading device there. Similar eruptions to this type have occurred previously, notably in 1945. There was a fair old eruptive period there in which lahars were produced down the Wangehu Valley, and that eruption emptied out the crater lake due to an ice cave melting out, and at the end of once the lake was completely empty, then some fairly powerful eruptions did occur. There was a plug of semi-solid lava forced up into the vent in the where the crater lake was, and that actually blew out, and there were some violent ash eruptions between August and November in 1945. That was quite an explosion in that it was throwing hot lava blocks up to 1.5 kilometres out from the active vent. And volcanic ash was falling as far away as Wellington. Now the sequence that you see here has also been stop framed just to show the expansion of that column of ash and steam rising up. By stop framing, you get an effect that otherwise you wouldn't be able to see, of course. Showing this sequence again because it's there's a lot of boiling going on in the cloud, but also if you can use your fast forward button on your remote control, or ×2, the effect is quite spectacular. It shows the degree to which the ash cloud actually boils. This is now very early Wednesday, the 27th of September. You can see the outline of the mountain just pre-dawn, and on the right hand side you can just see the eruptive cloud coming up. It shows us, of course, that the mountain doesn't sleep at night. It carries on, although we can't see it. I had the video camera running all night long, but at no stage did it show any sign of glowing red hot eruptive material at all, so it's still not too dry at this stage, the crater lake. There was still plenty of water in there keeping everything cool. Now, during this sequence, as the sun's rising, we get some quite spectacular colour changes, and quite sudden colour changes, and also the development of the ash layer over the crown area of the mountain. Speaking to people in the town, they would tell you that they would get up early in the morning, they look out, they would see the site, and an hour and a half would go by, and they realised they hadn't shifted from their position in the kitchen looking out at this scene. Spectacular beauty. Mount Ruapehu is about 2,797 metres above sea level. The ski field car park base area is at approximately 1,600 metres, with the top of the upper T-bar approximately 2,300 metres. People often go up the top T-bar and then walk up to the crater area, have a rest at the top and a picnic lunch, and then ski down. Years ago, when the ski field was first developed, it used to be possible to go up there and walk down into the crater and actually bathe in the warm waters of the crater, but they've become far too acidic in recent times for this to occur. Although there was a case in 91 or 92 where some skiers actually on a photography trip got caught in an avalanche and got swept into the crater lake, and were very, very fortunate to be able to swim their way out again. Now, while these eruptions are going on, of course, the lake is continually being emptied. The lahar that you can see on the left was ever changing with binoculars. You could see a gradual build-up of new lake material. On the Whakapapa side, the lahars also expanded around that side, and on the Vonkahehu valley, which is on the southern side, which leads down to the Tangiwai area, further lahars occurred down there as well. At the same time, the ash cloud tended to be drifting northeast, and people in Napier were having a hard time, getting very annoyed with the dumpings of ash that they were receiving. Occasionally the desert road would be closed due to excessive amounts of ash on it. Well, it looks here as if everybody is perhaps getting quite used to this volcano erupting away in the background. The township in Ohakune at this point had received no ashfall whatsoever. So, of course, unless you looked out the window or watched the news, there was no way that you would know there was any eruptions going on. This little eruption that's occurring now is quite an interesting one. If you watch the shadow as it progresses down the mountain, at first glance it could appear to be a very large lahar. This would be unlikely to happen, of course, due to the fact that on this Tura side, or the Ohakune side of the hill, there is a very large lip which protects the ski field area from such an occurrence, hopefully. Well, we finish up here with some beautiful shots taken later in the week, in the late afternoon, early evening, with some amazing colour changes, and you can see how much the ash has covered over the top of the ski field area and right down the southern and southeastern slopes. Later, of course, this area was completely recovered in snow, and the mountain was back to pristine condition again, and of course skiing commenced only 2 weeks after the original eruption. On both sides of the mountain, good skiing was enjoyed, good spring skiing. These scenes have been recorded using a video camera that was attached to the side wall of the porch of the Snowbird Lodge in Ohakune. Now we'll move on to a different perspective. We'll go to the Wednesday the 18th of October, and we'll see how things got back to normal quite quickly. And here we are, skiing back on Tura ski field. Bit of blackening up there over the saddle area. Unfortunately, Whakapapa had been completely covered in ash and had to close. But Tura was able to continue on its merry way, attracting good numbers of skiers. It's coming up to Labour weekend, and there it is. This is still Wednesday, looking rather pristine. Mountaineer round at National Park. Thought now we'd go and have a quick look in the crater. This is Saturday the 20th of October. There we are, approaching Ruapehu. Whakapapa very badly blackened. Narahari, and then Tongariro behind that. Just a little bit of blackening there. You can see quite clearly where rocks have come over that side. Girdle stone there on the right. And that's the crown area directly above the Tura ski field. 1 hour's walk from the top of the T-bar normally. Not permitted at this time, of course. Now we're moving further round to the southeastern side. You can start to see the complexity of the peak of Mount Ruapehu. Now we're flying over the Whangehu Valley, which is the normal outlet for the crater lake, when of course there is a crater lake. At this stage it's completely empty. Heavily scoured out in that view. the left there you can see where it's been scoured out again, the normal outlet right in the middle of the picture. Brilliant day for viewing the crater. Not too much eruption going on, so the pilot was able to fly very close. It's been the first time they've been able to fly this close for quite some time. That's dome shelter right in the middle of the picture there. Just going back the other way. Very complicated crater area. A lot of sulfur, yellow sulfur in that eruptive cloud there. Going back over the southeastern side. Now virtually over the top of the Turoa ski field. There again we can see the blackened area of Whakapapa. Thank you very much for watching this tape. I hope you've enjoyed it.